All right, here I'm going to attempt to give a brief overview of the skeletal system. So you can see here, hopefully you'll be pondering wonderful thoughts about the skeletal system, and by the end you'll be feeling like this. So first off, I include some videos, so keep in mind in the description there's a link to the slides. There's some YouTube videos you can watch about ones on Britain's Got Talent, showing someone who's very flexible, and ones here at looking at neck stretching in Myanmar and some of the changes that occur physiologically. Reminder that remember about the homologous and analogous structures. We see this kind of the same picture here, comparing homologous structures where they have similar structure but different function, and analogous structures, keep in mind, have different structure but similar functions. These homologous structures, comparing the function of the phalanges in the human to the bat, for example. This is just showing one here. We're looking at the homologous, which is right up here. Humans of the phalanges, those are your fingers, what they're used for compared to the bat. Again, ours is for gripping and grabbing, and the bat it would be for flying. Now, changes in the human skeleton that do occur. In embryos, the skeleton is primarily hyaline cartilage. During development, much of this cartilage is replaced by bone. Not all of it, but much of it. There is cartilage that does remain in the body, and that's like, for example, your ears, your nose, and your throat region, and also within your rib cage. So there's different areas also within your joints. You can still have some remaining cartilage. During the development of the skeletal system, at birth, the skull bones are not quite complete. There's actually kind of room for them to move, and they're not quite fully fused yet. The adult human only has 206 bones that have grown together from about 300 bones at birth. So within the skull, just as an example, bones are joined by fibrous membranes called fontanelles. These fontanelles are completely replaced with bone within 2 years after birth. So if you have a very early newborn, there'll actually be little soft spots in their head, and those are the fontanelles. That's the gap between the plates within their skull that haven't quite fused yet. That's to help with the birthing process and also allow the brain to grow and develop. Now, functions of the skeletal system in general some of them might be very obvious. They support the framework, cradle the soft organs that you have. That helps provide them with protection in case of brain or spinal cord or vital organs. That spinal cord runs right down the vertebrae, all encased in bone there. It's responsible for movement. It gives the muscles something to pull on. It gives kind of that lever system for muscles to pull on. Also, it acts as mineral storage, which is a way the body can kind of store minerals, especially calcium and phosphorus, to be used to help regulate other levels. For example, calcium, there's very little of it in the blood, but it's a very crucial amount, and the body will actually take it from the bones if it needs to help maintain that very precise level. And the skeletal system is important for blood cell formation because within the bone marrow, as we'll see, is responsible for many of the components of the circulatory system. Talked about that cartilage, bones in the cartilage. Now there's different types of cartilage, so that's important to keep in mind. There's hyaline, there's fibrocartilage, and there's elastic cartilage, located in different areas. The hyaline cartilage is for smooth surface and gliding of particular joints, as you can see kind of in your ball and socket joint, in your elbow. Then we have elastic cartilage, which is very flexible and makes up the exterior of the ear and also your epiglottis. And your fibrocartilage is resisting strong forces. It's very fibrous. Compression and tension, that would be very important to have in your in your vertebrae, between your vertebrae of your spinal cord. There's different classifications of bones. There's flat bones, irregular, short bones, long bones, and sesamoid bones. And they're just helpful classifications, and a lot of them make sense. Flat bones are flat. Irregulars are kind of those odd kind of shaped. Short bones, long bones, and the sesamoid bones here are kind of like your specialty bones, as we see in the patella or kneecap. The composition of bone in general, we have an organic component, which is your osteoblasts, which is your bone-forming cells. Your osteocytes, which are mature bone cells that maintain mineral concentrations, and then your osteoclasts, which are large cells that reabsorb or break down the bone matrix. So while these all start with osteo, blasts are bone forming, cytes are the mature bone cells, and clasts are the large cells that reabsorb or break down the bone matrix. So these four types of cells are found within the bone tissue. You can see kind of how they're all organized here. These cells, osteogenic cells, are undifferentiated and develop into osteoblasts. We kind of have this kind of formation of these different cells. However, when osteoblasts get trapped within the calcified matrix, their structure and function changes and become osteocytes. So some of these have the unique ability to change. And lastly, our osteoclasts develop from monocytes and macrophages and differ in appearance from other bone cells if you were to look at them under a microscope. Then we have our inorganic or our mineral components to the bones. There's 67% of bone by mass is minerals, mainly calcium and phosphates. So while a bone is composed of 39% calcium, if you take all the bones in your body, it is 99% of the body's calcium. That 1% is in the blood, and that's a very important 1% to have. Minerals are responsible for the bone hardiness and resistance to compression. So you can again just see the comparison of what a bone is made out of and what percentage it makes up of the body. Calcium and phosphate being key ones. While a bone is 17% phosphate, it's again 99% of your total phosphate in your system. The gross anatomy of bones are in bone textures. The adult skeleton has 206 bones. There's a compact bone, which is the dense outer layer, which gives it a lot of really good strength. And then inside there's a honeycomb, which is a spongy bone. And this is to help reduce weight and allow areas to be filled with bone marrow. And it could be red or yellow depending on your age. But that tough, compact bone on the outside is really what gives bones a lot of their total strength. Marrow produces necessary components of the circulatory system. So that marrow, particularly of the long bones, we see kind of a superimposed image here, is making your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and also your platelets, all very important for a fully functional circulatory system. Red bone marrow is soft, spongy tissue at the center of bones that produces red blood cells, white blood cells, and also those all-important platelets. Since the production of red blood cells requires iron, the marrow is one of the places in the body that normally stores a supply of iron. This kind of gives you a real-world image of what it looks like. It also contains stem cells, and stem cells are cells that can kind of be made into anything. Here we're looking at specifically cells that will go along the path to help or aid in the circulatory system in some way. Here we see the outer surface of the bone. We have the red bone marrow, and we have the yellow bone marrow in the center here in this particular image. That yellow bone marrow that I mentioned, it's an important component, and it will increase with age. So it contains, yellow bone marrow contains mostly fat and begins to replace red bone marrow in long bones after about 5 years old. When we're younger, our bones contain very little fat, and as we age, the percentage of fat in the marrow increases. Here's an infant less than 1 year old, composed mostly of that red bone marrow. Then childhood, 1 to 10 years old, we see that yellow starting to occur. Adolescents, 10 to 20 years old, much more yellow bones, kind of when yellow marrow within the bones. When you're adult, considered to be 25 years plus in this case, you see the vast majority has been replaced with yellow bone marrow. Now we still have that vital red bone marrow to help keep producing some of those vital components of the cell, but you could see not nearly as great percentage as it was when you were an infant.